Chapter 29 of Ruth. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Lyons. Ruth by Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell. Chapter 29. Sally takes her money out of the bank. The conversation narrated in the last chapter as taking place between Mr Farquhar and Jemima occurred about a year after Ruth's dismissal from her situation. That year, full of small events, and a change of place to the Bradshaws, had been monotonous and long in its course to the other household. There had been no want of peace and tranquillity. There had, perhaps, been more of them than in the preceding years, when, though unacknowledged by any, all must have occasionally felt the oppression of the falsehood, and a slight glancing dread must have flashed across their most prosperous state, lest, somehow or another, the mystery should be disclosed. But now, as the shepherd boy in John Bunyan sweetly sang, "Me that is low need fear no fall," still their peace was as the stillness of a grey autumnal day, when no sun is to be seen above, and when a quiet film seems drawn before both sky and earth, as if to rest the wearied eyes after the summer's glare. Few events broke the monotony of their lives, and those events were of a depressing kind. They consisted in Ruth's futile endeavours to obtain some employment, however humble, in Leonard's fluctuations of spirits and health, in Sally's increasing deafness, in the final and unmendable wearing out of the parlour carpet, which there was no spare money to replace, and so they cheerfully supplied its want by a large hearthrug that Ruth made out of ends of list, and, what was more a subject of unceasing regret to Mr Benson than all, the defection of some of the members of his congregation who followed Mr Bradshaw's lead. Their places, to be sure, were more than filled up by the poor, who thronged to his chapel, but still it was a disappointment to find that people about whom he had been earnestly thinking, to whom he had laboured to do good, should dissolve the connection without a word of farewell or explanation. Mr Benson did not wonder that they should go; nay, he even felt it right that they should seek the spiritual help from another, which he, by his error, had forfeited his power to offer. He only wished that they had spoken of their intention to him in an open and manly way. But not the less did he labour on among those to whom God permitted him to be of use. He felt age stealing upon him apace, although he said nothing about it, and no one seemed to be aware of it, and he worked the more diligently while it was yet day. It was not the number of his years that made him feel old, for he was only 60, and many men are hale and strong at that time of life. In all probability, it was that early injury to his spine which affected the constitution of his mind as well as his body, and predisposed him, in the opinion of some at least, to a feminine morbidness of conscience. He had shaken off somewhat of this since the affair with Mr Bradshaw. He was simpler and more dignified than he had been for several years before, during which time he had been anxious and uncertain in his manner, and more given to thought than to action. The one bright spot in this grey year was owing to Sally. As she said of herself, she believed she grew more nattered as she grew older, but that she was conscious of her natteredness was a new thing, and a great gain to the comfort of the house, for it made her very grateful for forbearance, and more aware of kindness than she had ever been before. She had become very deaf, yet she was uneasy and jealous if she were not informed of all the family thoughts, plans, and proceedings, which often had, however private in their details, to be shouted at her at the full pitch of the voice. But she always heard Leonard perfectly. His clear and bell-like voice, which was similar to his mother's till sorrow had taken the ring out of it, was sure to be heard by the old servant, though every one else had failed. Sometimes, however, she got her hearing sudden, as she phrased it, and was alive to every word and noise, more particularly when they did not want her to hear, and at such times she resented their continuance of the habit of speaking loud as a mortal offence. One day, her indignation at being thought deaf called out one of the rare smiles on Leonard's face. She saw it, and said, "Bless thee, lad! If it but amuses thee, they may shout through a ram's horn to me, and I'll never let on I'm not deaf. It's as good a use as I can be of," she continued to herself, "if I can make that poor lad smile a bit." If she expected to be everybody's confidant, she made Leonard hers. "There," said she, when she came home from her marketing one Saturday night. "Look here, lad. Here's a £42 7s. 2d. It's a mint of money, isn't it? I took it all in sovereigns for fear of fire." "What is it all for, Sally?" said he. "Ay, lad, that's asking. It's Mr Benson's money," said she, mysteriously, "that I've been keeping for him. Is he in the study, think ye?" "Yes, I think so. Where have you been keeping it?" "Never you mind." She went towards the study, but thinking she might have been hard on her darling in refusing to gratify his curiosity, she turned back and said, "I say, if thou wilt thou mayest do me a job of work some day. I'm wanting a frame made for a piece of writing." And then she returned to go into the study, carrying her sovereigns in her apron. "Here, Master Thurstan," said she, pouring them out on the table before her astonished master. "Take it, it's all yours." "All mine! What can you mean?" asked he, bewildered. She did not hear him, and went on. "Lock it up safe out of the way. Dunnot go and leave it about to tempt folks. I'll not answer for myself if money's left about. I may be cribbing a sovereign." "But where does it come from?" said he. "Come from!" she replied. "Where does all money come from but the bank, to be sure? I thought any one could tell that." "I have no money in the bank," said he, more and more perplexed. "No, I knowed that, but I had. Dunnot you remember how ye would raise my wage last Martinmas 18 year? You and Faith were very headstrong, but I was too deep for you. See thee! I went and put it in the bank. I was never going to touch it, and if I had died it would have been all right, for I'd a will made, all regular and tight, made by a lawyer. Leastwise, he would have been a lawyer if he hadn't got transported first. And now, thinks I think I'll just go and get it out and give it 'em. Bank is not always safe." "I'll take care of it for you with the greatest pleasure. Still, you know, banks allow interest." "Do you suppose I don't know all about interest, and compound interest too, by this time? I tell ye I want you to spend it. It's your own. It's not mine. It always was yours. Now you're not going to fret me by saying you think it mine." Mr Benson held out his hand to her, for he could not speak. She bent forward to him as he sat there, and kissed him. "Eh, bless ye, lad! It's the first kiss I've had of ye since you were a little lad, and it's a great refreshment. Now, don't you and Faith go and bother me with talking about it. It's just yours, and make no more ado." She went back into the kitchen and brought out her will, and gave Leonard directions how to make a frame for it; for the boy was a very tolerable joiner, and had a box of tools which Mr Bradshaw had given him some years ago. "It's a pity to lose such fine writing," said she, "though I can't say as I can read it. Perhaps you'd just read it for me, Leonard." She sat open mouthed with admiration at all the long words. The frame was made, and the will hung up opposite to her bed, unknown to any one but Leonard, and, by dint of his repeated reading,